Hello and welcome to NIAGA Spotlight with me, Tamina Kausji. NIAGA Spotlight takes us through the week in economic analysis and future affairs. Now, this week on Future Affairs, we spotlight the topic of AI governance and talent pipelines for ASEAN. Now, Malaysia is building the digital rails that could define ASEAN's AI future. Billions are pouring in. Microsoft with 2.2 billion USD, Google with 2 billion USD, and Tenaga Nasional, on the other hand, Tenaga is investing over 43 billion ringgit to power it all. Malaysia also just hosted the inaugural ASEAN AI Malaysia Summit, a first of its kind regional convergence to catalyze collaboration, governance, and innovation in artificial intelligence. But here's the big question. Will we own this ASEAN AI future or lease it from global giants? The AI talent race is just as fierce. Malaysia's annual AI talent brain drain sits at 5.5%, well above the global average. And while the digital economy could hit 25.5% of our GDP this year, fewer than 1 in 5 Malaysian SMEs are using AI at all. That is a red light for the economy. NIAGA Spotlight today discusses how to lock in AI investments for long-term growth, plug the talent leaks, while ensuring that no business is left behind. This is not just a tech story, it's one that involves power, economics, as well as AI sovereignty. So joining me online now for this very timely discussion are Sharala Axryd, founder and CEO with the Center of Applied Data Science, CADS, together with Dr. Chris Daniel Wong, Emeritus Chair with the Malaysia Digital Chamber of Commerce, the MDCC. Very good morning to the both of you. Thank you so much for making time. How are you both doing?
Hi, Dr. Chris.
Wonderful. Glad to have the both of you with us. So I've got an opening salvo for the both of you. Now, one thing that is so clear to anyone who uses AI, Sharala as well as Dr. Chris, AI model capacity is doubling roughly every 7 months. So this is far outpacing the speed of legislation. That's how we're getting these regular ChatGPT and etc. updated versions, right? And despite this lightning speed of innovation, even the bottled water that you drink actually has stricter regulations around it. So the question remains that when we are looking at the fact that nobody is pausing on AI development, in ASEAN's context, how do we then create a governance and talent blueprints that keep up with the pace of this velocity? Perhaps I could ask maybe Dr. Chris first, ensuring that Malaysian platforms can compete globally while meeting both these local and international standards. A few opening thoughts.
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to look at the legislation that govern the usage of AI. Back in the European Union, I believe that they have passed on an AI regulation, if I'm not mistaken, around August 2024. And Malaysia echoed the same thing, where at the end of 2024, we actually set up a national AI office to look into the legislation of the usage of AI and the governance of AI. But this needs to be accelerated. The main reason why I say that this needs to be accelerated, many scientists were very surprised to see that the language model learning capacity of AI is actually way ahead of what they had in mind. For example, the model language capacity of AI is actually several months ahead than what it's supposed to be. So this actually posed a real-time challenge in terms of governance. We thought that the AI would actually learn something new by end of the year, just given the context. But what they should learn end of the year, they are learning now actually. And therefore, we see that there's a gap between the industrial usage versus the governance or the law that's supposed to be policing it. And that is why many fraud or besides fraud, many, what we call that, inability to manage such rapid growth of AI.
Thank you for that, Dr. Chris. Sharala, on your side, would you tell us a little bit more about, as an opening salvo perhaps, looking at the AI and data talent pipeline? That is, of course, a crucial issue, particularly for us here in Malaysia.
Oh, yes. Like you just talked about, whether we can keep up, do we need to have governance? And Dr. Chris rightfully talked about, Europe having, the AI policy in place. But for me, it's really clear you can't get it perfect. And having rules and policies around it. We have to be careful about not curbing innovation, which I think you'll be talking about it a bit more. And without the right talent to build policy, you also need the right skills to execute these policies, right? And the policies cannot be static. And NIO office, like what Dr. Chris said, it's amazing, but it cannot be static. It should be ongoing, and it should also not be curbing. So in all these, STEM, you're right that talent and skills become so crucial, from creating a policy to executing the policy, and also getting the right talents and keeping the right talents in the country.
Exactly, getting the right talents and also keeping them. We'll dig a little bit deeper into that in just a few more minutes. Thank you for that, Shah. Dr. Chris, so let's look at a reality check first. Now, Malaysia, of course, we're chairing ASEAN this year. And if the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement, the DEFA, what they're targeting is 1 trillion USD in added GDP by 2030. So what would you say is a sort of a minimum viable compliance stack that MDCC is hoping that every Malaysian SME is able to meet, maybe even by next year, so we are able to sell across ASEAN without any kind of legal backlash?
Well, if you look at the minimum viable compliance stack, I would look at 12 things. 12 things in very particular. I think first we talk about governance. Second, we need to talk about look at data mapping. Third is privacy and consent. And then cross-border transfers, vendor management, security baselines, breach readiness, data retention, marketing and cookies. Cookies is left over inside Internet Explorer, any browser, rights handling, training, and evidence pack. I think these are the things these 12 things are the things that's very crucial in keeping the minimum viable stack. In terms of governance, in terms of policing, these are the, as I said, these are the framework that needs to be in DEFA, the digital economy framework. Malaysia is right now being driven almost 30% of this GDP by digital economy. And as we move forward, the number is going to keep on increasing. And there's a need to look into these 12 points that I mentioned just now, so that SMEs not only can sell across ASEAN, but they can sell across without data law conflicts. And the 10 ASEAN countries, including EU, has to come up with what we call common framework, covering data transfer, consent, breach alerts, so that everything is aligned. And one more thing that I want to add on is that Malaysia has its own PDPA. And I thought that the PDPA has to be amended in line with the DEFA frameworks of ASEAN frameworks and also EU frameworks. As what I said earlier on, so that when businesses sell across border, especially ASEAN, there is no data law conflicts. That would be my response.
Well said indeed. Now, of course, our PDPA amendments for this year, they add data portability, mandatory DPOs, and also breach notification. And this style of adequacy style transfer regime, it's good for an SME starter pack, but also then comes the enforcement part of things, right? Thanks for that, Dr. Chris. Shah, going back into speaking about talent. Now, also, Microsoft says its Malaysia plan includes mass skilling hundreds of thousands, and CADS, of course, aided in scaling earlier programs. So I think you'd be the perfect person to post this to. So how do you multiply certified data scientists from thousands to hundreds of thousands without diluting quality? And this is what we're going to need in the medium term. This is not even a long-term issue, right?
Yes. Yeah, this is my favorite topic, right? Mass skilling fails if it's based on tools. So a very unpopular opinion, but tools come and go. It's very, very important we enable skills in every level the country has. From schools, from universities. So we make sure that skills like, knowing where your data is, how you collect them, how you use them to solve problems, even data storytelling becomes so important for every level at work, graduates that come out. Responsible AI, ethical AI, how you use the data, whether it's correct to use the data becomes really important. So if you look at how the world has moved now, from data scientists centralized in a company, they have democratized skills to every role. So That's the only way we're going to guarantee quality versus volume. And we look at skills, we train thinkers, not button pushers. So I think it's very important that companies and universities realize that, just getting AWS, Microsoft is important as a tool to learn, but that's not going to guarantee what the future is going to be, because tools come and go and they expire. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, highly agree with that. And at the same time, we're also seeing, on the other hand, globally speaking, Facebook's Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, Sam Altman of OpenAI, they are bidding in the hundreds of millions to get the right technical AI knowledge skill workers at the moment. So that also, I think, speaks to wider trends, perhaps even in the region, if not Malaysia, that salaries are going to have to be commensurate enough to ensure that trained professionals also want to stay in ASEAN and Malaysia. Thanks for that, Shah. Dr. Chris.
But Tam, I need to kind of, I'm sorry, I need to add that, right? You're perfect in saying that, the young talent globally, right? We have China, we have India. ASEAN is so perfectly positioned to be the third largest young population, which we are right there in the sweet spot to get great data and AI talent to be skilled and to be used and exported for the same reason all these companies are bidding for.
Absolutely. I mean, that youth pool is unparalleled, particularly given the levels of education that are quite regularized and uniform across ASEAN as well. Dr. Chris, moving along from there, now let's look at powering AI without brownouts, those temporary reductions in power services. Now, data center build out around Malaysia is absolutely surging. As mentioned, Google $2 billion invested, Microsoft $2.2 billion, ByteDance are close to in the range of 10 billion ringgit, while TNB is also planning a 43 billion ringgit grid update, and this will be by 2029 and in Malaysia. So now this will also let operators buy clean power directly. In your opinion, and from MDCC's side, what guardrails should tie incentives to energy discipline? Because this is going to be an increasing cause of concern as the year goes on.
Well, I think this is one of my favorite topics that I would like to touch on. I think that yesteryears, there was so much buzz around when data center was set up in Malaysia. But we feel, both the private sectors and public sectors feel need. And that is why there was such a big hoo-ha at the beginning of the year when TNB starts to implement new electricity tariff. And of course, we see some reductions among the household. But generally, we see more upwards of electricity bills for the businesses because of the finances that needed to improve on the grid. So looking at it, I would mention 6 things. I think first and foremost, before any new data centers being set up, there must be an energy efficiency, what we call studies, right? How much power usage that these businesses, the data center, will need to require to use when they set up the businesses or the data center. So this is about power usage effectiveness. So we need to cap that actually, because if you don't cap that, and then this data center keep on pulling electricity and use it in a big way, it will affect household and it will affect businesses because the load is getting heavier. And when you mention about clean power sourcing, right? This is the second point. Now, we will recommend to the policymakers that about 80 to 100% of the power to be backed via renewable energy. So 80 to 100% is actually a very tall order, but we need to set the right framework, the right policy, so that we just don't rely on coal energy, but instead of, clean new energy, which is actually renewable energy, and that must be measured. And that we also look at water use. We need huge amount of water use, and we are talking about raw water that also will stress out the water usage, both the household and also the businesses. And if you recycle the water that after being used, how effective in terms of water usage effectiveness will then be used on the recyclable water, not only new water. right? And then we also need to look at grid impact checks. When the grid is overloaded during peak demand, there will be stability issue on the grid. Also will affect household and businesses, right? And perhaps the agency that's promoting businesses, like for example, you mentioned Google, ByteDance, Microsoft, and so forth, there must be a form of tax break and tax incentive, like for example, a gold tier tax incentive that allows operator to only claim tax incentive when they meet all these KPI that I mentioned just now. And last of all, of course, the relevant body needs to monitor and produce transparent report. And I do believe the Parliament Accountability Committee, the PAC, needs to publish this data periodically and transparently so that the lawmaker and also the people that work with the lawmaker will be able to know what is happening in the industries so that they also have a voice to input into future policies. And that will be my opinion.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Chris. I think you really hit the nail on a couple of those most urgent issues. And of course, zooming in a little closer when it comes to, in particular, water, of course, as an essential resource when it comes for the cooling purposes, etc. Perhaps one very important parameter that is still missing overall is the fact that Malaysia currently also actually allows for the use of potable water for cooling. So that would perhaps be the most important thing to urgently legislate, particularly considering the concentration of data centers when it comes to high volume usage states such as Selangor as well as Johor. Thanks a lot for that, Dr. Chris. So Shah, now digging deeper into looking at the talent pool itself. Now, of course, Malaysia's diaspora was cited at roughly around 1.86 million people. That is 5.5% of the population. Looking specifically at AI and the talent workforce, what retention levers in your experience or in your perspective would work in practice for mid-career AI talent?
This is an issue, right? So I'm equally kind of that, brain drain that Malaysia has faced. I left the country and I came back and to start CADS. And, 5.5%, we have that on brain drain, but we have about 11% of graduate unemployment in the country. Now, the key thing about retaining talent, it's never really about salary. It's always about giving opportunity for growth, giving opportunity to work on world-class projects. But having said that, it's also mindset of managers accepting the fact that expert skills could, possibly earn more than what they are earning. Like even in my company, special skills, data skills, AI skills, they earn more than even what I draw as a salary, right? So retention comes in many ways, but I think it's important to recognize paying market roles for skills. We are willing to hire foreigners and pay more than recognizing local talents, maybe not having all the skills that's required, but work on them and paying for the upskilling and giving them opportunity to grow. And also, I think it's important to understand and build a, growth pathway for them, right? What's your next career progression? Where would you be? What are the projects you got to have? And more companies are involving in great technologies and projects. And I think that will be key to retain talent, right? Recognizing them, giving them opportunity to grow, but also paying what is the market rate for these skills. It's still cheaper to have a local to hire than getting a foreigner, unless that talent, that particular skill is not available, but tying it in making sure that they are mentored to grow into that role.
Absolutely. Now, also, you've, I think, shared some of these 3 top retention levers which may actually change decisions when it comes to the people themselves. Now, companies also, Shah, they promise jobs, but R&D budgets and clear career tracks obviously matter more. Is there the possibility of more certification of domestic placements by players such as CADS, of course, so employers can then credibly promise higher value roles to the existing talent in Malaysia that also does need some upskilling in every quarter of the year, literally, looking at the timeline of how quick innovations are happening?
Absolutely, right? It's, the word lifelong learning is so loosely used all the time. But, companies are investing, but the way they are doing it is very ad hoc. Like how we used to do all this while about, you need something and you upskill them, then you let it go. But today, more and more companies are looking at upskilling using AI as a strategic way of, monitoring, recognizing what skills that needs to be there, and enabling individuals to be able to consume skills as they go. So no more like, fixed framework and, hope and pray for the best, because even those upskilling framework needs to be agile and continuously updated. And the only way you can do that is having AI embedded in that. So absolutely, you're spot on about having the right certification. I think the part of certification becomes really important to ensure people have, gone through and finished it, but more so applying these skills in companies. This year, nearly all the companies are looking at ROI, return of investment of all the upskilling efforts we have done. Have people going back to their tables and offices and applying these and delivering outcome like, process optimization, new revenue opportunity. And that's what companies are looking at, not just upskilling, but making sure that it's applied and they see a return in whatever they've learned.
Clearly, that lifelong learning model, it has to be applied, I think, even more urgently when it comes to AI and upskilling. Thank you, Shah. Dr. Chris, let's dig deeper into something that you had, of course, briefly touched on earlier in the opening, the quandary that we're facing now of building once but complying twice. Now, as mentioned, the EU AI Act, it entered into force late 2024, August, and imposing duties on high-risk AI. Malaysia, of course, we did launch our NIO, our National AI Office, also in December 2024, steering standards. Now, on MDCC's side, what would be a blueprint, perhaps, so Malaysian platforms can ship AI features that satisfy both EU as well as ASEAN rules without having to duplicate costs?
Well, in my opinion, we need to adopt an AI governance system. For example, ISO or IEC standards of 42001 that can be both mapped to EU AI Act obligation and the ASEAN AI governance principle. So when we are able to adopt a standard AI governance system, therefore both of the processes, both regime can be made into one regime, and then both processes are met. So then we are able to manage the scope of risk, right? The scope of risk or the risk scope, where we are able to use the EU high-risk category as a Malaysian standard baseline. And then the rest of the ASEAN will then follow naturally, because this year we are the chair. So this year, as we said, it presents a very good opportunities for Malaysia to take the lead in mapping up this standard baseline. So we need this so that we are able to cover not only EU but also ASEAN as well. So in all, we want to encourage the policymaker to create a standard AI technical file template that is recognized by both EU and also ASEAN. And as I said, once it's unified, right, we can then monitor it together. And importantly, we are also able to share the same registry fields, because the standards and the systems are both the same actually. Then this is what you meant, right? This is what you meant by build once but comply twice. And if we are able to do this, not only we comply twice, but because of the forward-looking, we are then able to comply 3 times actually. So this is something that we need to look ahead, not only 5 years, 8 years, but 10 years ahead on how to unify the system between 2 regions.
Absolutely. Now, comprehensive AI regime with risk-tired obligations, that really is the way to go, and time is really not on anyone's side. Thank you for that. Shah, now looking at diversity, which is, of course, an economic lever. Now, CADS has also been very visible on women in data. What sort of program design actually improves female retention into more senior AI roles in Malaysia, judging from what you have been involved in most recently?
I think there's a lot of females now leading, chief data officers, chief AI officers. It's amazing. But I think what would really help is have more sponsorship at work than mentorship, right? I always say women should need more visibility in the organization, and that's the only way that's going to happen is get more internal sponsorship for them to grow and give the support. I mean, we have all the re-entry program the government has deployed over the years, coming back to work. All that is fantastic. And the issue has always been not getting women being in STEM or AI. It's always about keeping them, in the workforce, right? Visibility is another thing. I think a lot of these amazing female leaders in data and AI are not very visible out there. And I would encourage more and more women to go out and talk and share what they've been doing and how they grow. And, women need more role models, and that's really important to go out there, as uncomfortable as it might be, because lack of a better word, right? Monkey see, monkey do. Not that we're saying we're monkeys, but having seeing more of us out there, having families, having career, and having difficulties to, being the super woman that we are always expected to be. It's not as rosy as a lot of people think, and sharing it becomes really crucial. So women would stay in AI when they get to see the path and get the support. They get the sponsorship to do that, not just, coddling them and giving them, maternity leave and support for children. I think it's more women need to go out and be visible about the career and the job they're doing.
Clearly so, and absolutely always thank you for doing more than your part, if I may say, because when it comes to the global talent data pool, women still fall behind at anywhere between as low as 22% to 30%, depending on the market. And CADS has also been running targeted fellowship as well as certification programs, right? So a lot more to be done, but it does look like this is a time to make that key difference in gender representation too. Thank you, Shah. Dr. Chris, moving along from there into looking at a little deeper at AI fraud before we close. And AI-powered scams, of course, are really hammering consumers. 2024-wise, Malaysia logged close to 2 billion ringgit in online fraud losses. Police probed roughly around 500 or so deepfake cases with commensurate losses of close to 3 million ringgit. So what kind of concrete asks does MDCC have for 2025 to make sure that this is not something which continues on an uptick, but it can be managed?
Well, our recommendation is to close the fraud loop, right? So when we close the fraud loop, we need to look at verify merchants, detect and remove the scam as fast as possible, and trace the AI content and then ban it. And then we need to protect compliant platforms and, of course, educating the policy. Educating the public. I will look at three things very importantly. I think number one, we need to look at 24 hours takedown. Platform must remove reported AI scams or deepfake within 12 hours once there's a complaint being lodged. I know industry has been screaming because once we do it, the cost of compliance will be very high, but there's no choice, right? There's no choice. We have to do it because there's so much scam in the market right now, right? So 12 to 24 hours response time. And second, all right, we need to provide safe harbor and rapid response. There must be legal protection for the platform and also legal protection for the consumer as well. We have heard of depositors lost their money in the bank and the bank refused to pay and then went to court and so forth. So there must be rapid response, safe harbor policy, all right? And the third thing is AI content labeling. Anything that people use which is not originally recorded with human, but is what we call but is generated by AI, a computer, there must be a watermarking. Just for example, you buy a bottle of wine, right, or a bottle of alcohol, and that is a particular custom, what we call a sticker or stamp that's being stick on the bottle to show that it's genuine. So likewise, for AI content, there must be a labeling that this is actually genuine. But of course, somebody has to pay for it, but there's no choice. But this is the only way that we can actually protect people from scam. And I want to draw to a
Sure.
very recent,
Dr. Chris,
I think around,
thanks very much for the insights so far. And I think it's clearly pointing to the fact that AI will be defining ASEAN's competitiveness, but only if we own the infrastructure, keep our talent, and also ensure that businesses are not left behind. Thank you so much for the conversation today, Sharala as well as Dr. Chris. Well, that's all we have time for today on NIAGA Spotlight. And with me, Tamina Kausju, we'll see you next week with more economic analysis and insights. Here's to a productive week ahead.